start now, if I haven't put my glasses on. Welcome to White Fever Live, and also if you're listening, welcome back. And our guest is a fellow who he's been interviewed 3 times, but he's only been on the program twice because we actually deleted, or something went wrong the first time, and he was nice enough to do the whole thing all over again, and I was able to take out the questions that didn't work the first time. Welcome back to White Fever, Joel Hoekstra. How are you, Joel?
I'm good. Thank you so much.
Now, 2 days until your second Joel Hoekstra's 13 album, Running Games, is out. Nerves? These days, do you get nerves or what?
No, I'm not nervous. I'm like ready to get it out there. That's all. I would say no, I'm not nervous about it. At this point, I'm just glad it seems to be well received. All the reviews are good, which is nice. And yeah, I'm just excited to get it out there and have people be able to enjoy it. I mean, if they don't, they don't. But no, I'm not nervous.
The title "Running Games" is because it was written on the road, and you're in Whitesnake, you're in Cher's band as well, Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Now none of us go anywhere. So are you like? Is that a source of daily frustration for you that you just go from the lounge room to the bedroom to the bathroom and that's it, or are you sort of philosophical about that?
I'm just trying to make the best of the situation. I think initially back when we all thought this was going to be a month or 2 or something like that, kicked in and I thought, all right, just make up for lost time with the kids, just be a dad, don't worry about it all, and then we'll fill the rest of the year. And I think once it became clear that we weren't going back anytime soon out on the road, I just started to come up with a game plan after 2 months or so of just kind of chilling and being like, fine, because 2019 was nuts, man. I was on the road 285 days out of the year. So for me to be home for a couple months, I was like, this is not the worst thing that's ever happened. But yeah, really since then, just sort of reinvented the art of being busy here. But better to be busy than not. I don't want to look back and feel like I wasted the time. If we do get back to some kind of touring and being back out there, I don't want to reflect on this and go like, boy, I just like sat around and just burned that whole time. I mean, I want every step of the way to be something I look back and go, boy, I really worked hard doing that during that time.
I've got 2 questions arising out of your answer. One is, do we see now a spate of songs about lockdown and about going nowhere and about, making the most of your time? Because, the traveling was an lyrical inspiration and a vibe inspiration for this record. So is not traveling going to be an inspiration for the next one?
Who knows? I mean, I would say more the actual writing of the songs happened for me running around than the songs are about traveling. Really, not many of them are about traveling. They're more like about escape or leaving your past behind kind of thing. I would say the actual traveling is only there in that I wrote a lot of the stuff on the road for sure. Now, lockdown stuff, yeah, I mean, maybe I'll have a song, My Kitchen Table coming out. I don't know. I have no idea.
You mentioned a game plan there, Joel, when, after 2 months, which I think we've all gone through that thought process about, how do we make the most of this time, and are we planning for a future that's like this, or are we planning for a future that's like it was before? What's the answer there? Like, are you kind of like got to the point where you're self-sufficient in this? I'm going to use a really wanky word here, paradigm. Are you got to the point where you're used to this paradigm and you can work within it indefinitely, or is everything still on hold and is everything planned towards being able to go back out on the road?
Well, as always, man, I mean, this stuff with me always goes day to day, you never know where life's going to take you. I'm just trying to do the best I can at every turn and stay productive. And life has a funny way of working out and taking you directions that you never thought you'd be going in. I mean, I got several of those stories in my life. So that's pretty much where I'm at. I mean, I'd be lying to say I don't miss being on tour. I mean, it's really hard to beat traveling the world and playing for thousands of people, and getting treated well in the process. So, I mean, it's tough to beat that lifestyle, but is that 100% of what being a musician is about? No, totally not, you know. So that doesn't mean I shouldn't be doing the best I can with everything else that's available at the time, and we'll just see where it all takes me.
Welcome back to the program. Makes no sense to those of you who are watching, but for those listening, it does. Joel Hoekstra is back from Whitesnake and other projects as well, and he's got a new album. By the time you hear this, it'll be out, called Running Games. Joel, how would you describe the difference between the first and second 13 albums?
I would say that it's just a little more focused this time around. Dying to Live was something that I kind of learned what it was going to be as I was writing it. So it started out really heavy, and then it ended up being something that I signed with Frontiers, and it just kind of gravitated towards the more melodic thing as I went. So this time around, I pretty much had defined, I think, the core sound of it. So just a little bit more focused.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, it's an all-star band. You've got Russell Allen, Tony Franklin, Vinny Appice, Derek Sherinian. Joel, I think I kind of might have asked you this last time a little bit, but now it's a more I guess even a few years later, it's become more of a more commonplace and more of a set template for people playing on each other's albums. It's like what everyone's doing now, like you got George Lynch, who's in so many bands and guys like that. So for those of us outside the industry, how does the template work? Like, how do you actually approach? So I know these guys played on your first album, so you've got a personal relationship, but how does it actually work? I guess from a business sense, without talking dollars, how does it work when you want someone to play on your record, or when someone like Michael Sweet wants you to play on their record? Is every situation different, or are there procedures that everyone goes through now and conventions that everyone goes through?
Oh, I mean, you pretty much send somebody an email or text and say, hey, you up for this? Or, what's your schedule looking like? That type of stuff. And are you free to do it? And so thankfully the whole lineup came back for this one. And this is obviously my thing, so that's the way it works. I ask if they'll be willing to play on mine, and in the case of Michael Sweet asking me to play on his, he's contacting me. So, and then you usually just send a stereo mix of a track more than a full session. Typically, you'll just get like here's the state of the track right now, and you lay down your tracks and make sure that they're in Pro Tools. You do it so they're consolidated to the same length. So you send them, and they drop right into the person's session, and there you go. That's pretty much the way it works. That's the Reader's Digest version.
Because it's refreshing to actually hear that it still works person to person. I mean, back in the day when people had these restrictive record contracts, like the guys on Fastway who formed the band Fastway couldn't play on their own record because they had contracts with other record companies and they couldn't get out of them, and they weren't allowed to perform on other people's records. So it's good to hear that it's not that restrictive anymore. I guess the record, that's maybe one of the few positives of the industry becoming not as all-powerful as it used to be.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I certainly enjoy being able to work with other musicians and have that freedom. I think that's it. I mean, it's essential these days. I don't really know anybody doing like one thing, or not many. I mean, typically people are part of 2-3 things these days, at the very least. It's just very hard to find something that can occupy 12 months out of your year. So even if you're in a band that's doing well, let's say you tour 5 months that year, 6 months, what are you supposed to do with the other 6 months?
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that it's just that's the state of the music industry these days. So, people back, they tend to complain about that these days, but I think if years ago they could see this and they'd go, oh, I'd do anything to be able to hear George Lynch play with so-and-so, right? Or that kind of thing. Yeah. So I think it's funny how people always they find a way to complain about these things when now, I mean, now I think nowadays it is what it is. Of course, that people do work together and collaborate, and I mean, I think it's cool myself, but I'm a musician, so I look at it
Yeah.
differently than like the standard fan.
I guess
I think there's an illusion of the fans that like
oh, yeah.
the bands are all like living together in a house and are all like, it's us against the world kind of thing. But I mean, that's kind of, that's just not really the way it is.
I guess the one thing is that fans become suspicious of is that if the quality suffers, if you're involved in 6 different projects and it doesn't, that's the fear, I guess, of a fan, is that their favourite musician will get involved in so many projects and they'll feel that the quality will be diluted. Is that a realistic concern, or is that not realistic?
I'd say that's not realistic. I mean, I would never phone in an effort on anything I'm doing ever. So at least from my perspective, I would never do that. So, I mean, it's all part of your body of work that you're putting out there to the world. So I think most musicians I know would not do that. Everybody's always gonna put in their best effort on things. I mean, as far as I know, maybe there's some very jaded people out there. I don't know, but I would never do that. I mean, I look at it like you're putting out something that's going to define your career or your body of work. So you always want it to be the very best it can be.
Welcome back to White Line Fever, third part of our interview with Joel Hoekstra. And I want to thank everyone for watching, if you're watching, and I apologise for stopping every 5 minutes. And if you're listening, thanks for listening to the last 3 episodes. Joel, just talking about, running games is, coming out, is out now for the people listening now. It's out. When does Whitesnake kind of kick back in for you? When do you have to kind of flick that switch and go back to that? And what does flicking that switch mean? You know what I mean? Like, how do you divide up your time and your concentration and your routine? What does it mean in a real sense to you on a daily basis to have these projects on the go?
Yeah, I mean, we're just in a holding pattern right now. David's been putting out the compilation records, 3 of them over the last year or so, and so that's been the focus. And we're just kind of waiting to see what's next. So whatever his plans are, I'll definitely be excited and be down for it. And as far as how I prepare for that, that depends on what's next. And I don't know what's next yet. So, but you just devote your time and energy to it, just like anything else. If you have a job to do, you do it.
Yeah, I saw Mitch Lafon in an interview asked you about planning for the future and what's going to happen when these gigs go away. And you were very anti that. You were very kind of anti-strategizing. You were like, I've never been a strategizer, and that's why I've had all these amazing adventures, because I've left myself available and open to do things. Is that this downtime, does that impact on that philosophy? Like, I mean, do you find yourself thinking maybe I need to plan a bit more, or not? I mean, what is your attitude? What is your attitude to that?
No, I just take everything day by day and do the best I can at every turn, and make sure that I'm productive and moving forward. And then life has a way of taking you to places that you never thought you'd end up. So as long as you do that and just be the best person you can be along the way, do the best you can at what it is you do, then, it's impossible for me to say, here's where I want to be in 10 years. I don't know. I never would have gotten into this if I was that kind of person, Yeah. I think to get into the music industry, you have to have a little bit of that blind faith, man, for sure.
Yeah. Before you go, I wanted just a couple more things. I wanted to ask you about Frontiers. I've heard recently, just reading the rock press, talk of a Frontiers sound. And I saw Joe Lynn Turner, speak about, changes of direction with Sunstorm and having a bit of a complaint or whinge about that. Is there a Frontiers sound, in your opinion, there, Joel? What do you? Are they only interested in certain type of music, or what vibe do you get?
Well, no, I think they've been diversifying, if anything, lately. I mean, I've been following what they've been doing. They're signing more metal, and they just released an instrumental album from Red Beach that I know that they typically don't release instrumental albums. So I think people are just referring to, if they produce a project and having somebody write all the material for it, that's sort of like a go-to for Frontiers. So rather than write the material themselves, but that would be like 100% the wrong direction for what my new record is, where I've written everything, like the lyrics and vocal melodies and the riffs and everything. So I don't worry about it too much. I mean, I worry about making my album as good as I can, and obviously I think it fits with Frontiers because I think they obviously focus a little bit on that classic rock sound, right? I mean that so my album fits with them, but it's not necessarily a calculated thing to sound right for Frontiers or anything.
Yeah. Or avoid going in a certain direction because they might not like it. What about the animated video that you did? Is that something that you have, that's down to you, or is that someone comes to you with a suggestion, hooks you up with an animator, or is it completely taken care of by the label? How does that eventuate?
Yeah, no, I mean that would definitely be a benefit of working with Frontiers because I've seen some of their artists recently putting out those animated videos. I thought those are cool, man. And when we talked about promo for this album, they suggested it, and I thought, yeah, okay, let's do it. And thought Finish Line would be a good song for that, a little darker. So I gave Wayne Joyner, the artist, a very loose idea of a storyline, and he basically took it all on and did a great job. So that's definitely something where you have the benefit of the label having a relationship with an artist, and so I'll just kind of lay it out for you. Like, here, you guys talk about what you want it to be like. Okay, cool. So for me, it's great fun. I've never had an animated video before. It's something I've always wanted to do. So for me, it's just really neat and fun. It makes me feel like I'm a kid.
It's. I mean, it kind of showcases both of your talents forever, doesn't it? It's a wonderful thing. If I was the animator, I'd be just like thrilled. You know what I mean? That's going to be there forever. Whenever anyone searches on YouTube, it's going to be my work and your work. It's a wonderful thing. Last thing, if we can just be AC/DC fans for a minute and geek out, because you said that you wanted to be a guitarist after listening to Angus Young. What do you make of AC/DC's comeback and the new record and all that sort of stuff? What are you most keen about and happy about the return of AC/DC?
I mean, I'm one of the world's worst listeners. I rarely listen to anything because I work on music so much, but I did click on one or two of the new tracks, and it sounded great. So I think it's awesome to see those guys out there still doing what they do and doing it well. Angus is just a living legend, man. It's amazing what he's able to do. Just not only as a guitar player but as a performer, man. I mean, never seen 10 seconds of footage of him taking it easy on stage all these years. That's pretty incredible.
It is. I saw them at Coachella a few years ago, and it was the first show of the tour. They'd been off the road for 5 years, and Angus had bloody knees. He's like an athlete who didn't have that kind of calluses on his knees because he hadn't been touring, and he's got blood on his knees while he's crawling around. And it's just he is like an athlete. Okay, we'll get a final song.
Yeah.
I'll get a question, and I'll get a question as well in there. Iron Maiden nominated for Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Just in the as we're recording this very recently. Whitesnake are similar vintage, a lot of the same attributes, commercial success, same kind of level. Is that in the future for Whitesnake? Should it be in the future for Whitesnake?
Oh man, I have no idea. I mean, that's a question for David. I know David's in the hall with Deep Purple now, so I have no idea. I don't even know how to answer that. But I mean, I'm just thrilled to be a tiny part of the band's history. That's all.